All right, it's 6:30. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Got a few more in the crowd this evening. I'd like to call the special council meeting for Thursday, May 27th to order. Before I start, a quick territorial acknowledgement. I'd like to respectfully acknowledge that we are meeting on the traditional territory of the Lekwungen-speaking people, represented today by the Kasepsum and Songhees nations, whose stewardship of these lands continue to this day. Item 2, approval of the agenda. I would like to add one item to the agenda this evening, and that is just a very quick one. It's just to discuss the scheduling of the council meeting on 28th of April, which happens to be the election day. So it's scheduled for then. It's both committee of the whole and council. So I just want to add that as 7.2, please. We have a mover and seconder to adopt today's council meeting. Okay, the amended agenda, and seconder, please. Thank you very much, Councillor Day. And the receipt of the near and long-term agendas. Okay, thank you. Discussion? Any opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. So just unfortunately, we barely have quorum tonight. We have people that like taking these spring breaks, I don't know, with kids. So unfortunately, we're missing a couple of the councillors. Some are away on business trips, and one is very sick. So unfortunately, this is what you get tonight. Item 3, adoption and receipt of minutes. May I have a mover and seconder for the adoption of council minutes from March 10th? And receipt of the Planning and Land Use Committee meeting minutes from January 6th, and report of the public hearing from February 27th. Thank you. So if you didn't get that, was Jordison and Grove. Discussion, any errors or omissions? Seeing none, I'll call the question. Any opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Thank you. So we get to public hearing. This is an unusual thing to do during council, but we're just going to take a little time out here, and I'm going to call the public hearing to order at 6:33 for Thursday, March 27th. This public hearing is convened pursuant to Section 465 of the Local Government Act to allow any person be given the opportunity to be heard or present written submissions who believes their interest is affected by the proposed bylaw. That's bylaw number 2043, Pendray House Heritage Designation. Council's role at the public meeting is to listen to the public. We will not answer questions or debate proposals or the proposed bylaw, except to provide clarification. No one will be discouraged from making their views known. However, it is important that you restrict your remarks to the matters contained in the proposed bylaw. To conduct this process in a fair and equitable manner following the public hearing, no submissions in any form from the public or the applicant guardian will be heard or received, and there will be no other opportunities to speak to the bylaw. At this time, I'll ask the corporate officer to provide instructions with regards to the public participation. Marcy.
Thank you, Mayor Kobayashi. So the following are the public participation instructions for tonight's meeting. The electronic participation instructions are on our screen. For those of you who'd like to join the meeting remotely, if you are joining the public hearing by phone, you will be identified by the last 3 digits of your phone number. If you are coming in with the Zoom app, we will identify you by your name that you have come in with. Those attending electronically who wish to be put into the queue to speak, please raise your virtual hand through the Zoom app or press *9 if you're attending by phone. The following rules will apply to the public input. No sound recordings or presentations will be permitted. Those in attendance will refrain from applause or other expressions of emotion, whether in favor of or opposition to the application. Inappropriate language, outbursts, or criticisms aimed at individuals or groups will not be permitted, and a speaker will not debate a point of view with another speaker, but will seek clarification through the chair. There will be 3 opportunities to speak to the item. At each opportunity, you will be provided 5 minutes. A timer will go off when your time is up, and we will move on to the next speaker. Once everyone has had the chance to speak for the first time, a second time, and a third opportunity will be provided. We ask those who speak to provide their name and address and indicate, please, whether you are in opposition or in support or in favor of the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marcy. And at this time, I'll call on Matt Blakely, our senior planner, to introduce the proposed bylaw. Matt?
Thank you, Your Worship. My apologies for...
Can't hear you, Matt.
Oh. How about now?
Oops.
Can you hear me now?
You try to
Yes.
speak?
That's great, Matt. We can hear you
Yeah.
now.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My apologies for not being present today. I thought I'd keep everybody from my cold tonight, so I'll do my best to get through this without having a coughing fit. So the notification period for this public hearing was conducted from March 12th to March 27th. Notices of the public hearing were published in the Gazette on March 12th and March 19th. They were also posted on the city's website. Throughout that time, a public hearing binder has been available for review digitally on the website, as well as a physical copy at City Hall at the front counter. And staff are present here tonight virtually to listen to public feedback. Just a quick point on the heritage designation bylaw. So there are means for local governments to protect key heritage features as authorized by Section 611 in the Local Government Act. These bylaws can apply to the building's exterior, interior, and/or associated landscape features. They can also identify components of heritage value based on the statement of significance, which Council has seen in previous meetings, and can prevent demolition or alteration without council approval. So this bylaw, the Pendray House Heritage Designation Bylaw 2043-2024, identifies the Pendray House as protected under this section in the Local Government Act. So specifically, this applies to the exterior staircase on the east elevation, including the inset fountain, historic interior finishes, including the tiled fireplace mantle in the living room, entrance paneling, staircase and railing, and the inlaid wood and terracotta tile flooring. So as a result of this bylaw, if it were to be adopted, the Pendray House must be maintained in good order so as to reasonably prevent damage and deterioration. So this includes maintaining the hipped roof, masonry walls, windows and doors, exterior finishes and trim, and all structural elements, and the historic interior finishes. So it should be noted that the property owner does have 1 year from the date of bylaw adoption to apply for compensation, but only in the case that there is a reduction in the market value of the property as a result of the bylaw. Staff expect that the market value of this property will likely remain unchanged as the existing zoning on the property was designed to support the preservation of the Pendray House. So in conclusion, the heritage designation of Pendray House is a significant step towards preserving our local heritage. By protecting its unique architectural features and ensuring its maintenance, the city is safeguarding a valuable piece of our community's history for future generations. Thank you all for your attention. I look forward to hearing from the members of the public on this important building.
Thanks very much, Matt. So for the first time, I'm going to ask the public to provide their input on the proposed bylaw number 2043. First time. Anybody wish to speak to it? Please, Carol.
I think I know by now. Carol Brown, QLT present, just here as an individual citizen, just speaking in favor of the motion. As a resident of Colwood for over 40 years, I have visited this particular property and I see the significance in its preservation. And I speak in favor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Carol. 40 years, you don't look that old. Anybody else for the first time? It's not seeing anything. I shall, for the second time, I'll make the call. Any members of the public that wish to have their input on the proposed bylaw 2043? No one virtually so far, right? Okay, good. And not seeing any. For the third and final time, I'm asking the public to provide their input on the proposed bylaw number 2043. Okay, seeing nothing here, there being no further input, I will declare the public hearing closed. Thank you very much, everyone. Okay. So we'll move on with the regular agenda. Item number 5, Mayor's message. I do have a quick message here. In case people have missed this in our communications from 2 days ago, it was announced that construction on the new pedestrian cycling bridge across the Galloping Goose Regional Trail across Souk Road down in near Colwood Corners by the Denny's has commenced. And at this point in time, I'd just like to thank the staff for all their hard work and diligence in getting all the permitting done. It was a few challenges, that's for sure. And work, like I said, will progress for the next 32 weeks, so that's approximately 8 months. And we're targeting to have this project completed, early 2026, and well before the grant funding deadline. So we're working against a deadline too. If we don't spend the money, a big portion of this bridge is a federal grant, and the rest was out of operational reserves here in Colwood. So a lot of people, I was just told, I'm not a social media person, but there's been a few people that have made comments that I just want to clarify right now. This wasn't done because we thought it was, just a fun thing to do. It is a major safety concern down there. And I've seen it now. I've seen people come across where the Galloping Goose ends, and instead of walking down to where the crosswalk is and going across with the lights, people are just taking their lives at risk by trying to run across the highway. So I'm going to be very transparent. I'll admit I did it last year. Bad me. And it was very bad example, I can tell you, but there was no traffic, and it was, but I've seen it myself when I've been driving my vehicle. So it is the number one primary reason that we put this in is for safety. And so I just want to make sure that people understand this wasn't an eco project of any sort. It was done for safety purposes. So I think it's very important, and it is a major accomplishment that is going to happen. Okay, that's all I wanted to say under Mayor's messages, and I'll continue on with public participation. We had we had 3. I saw a late submission this evening. We've had 3 written submissions. And one of them was received before the publication of the agenda, so that is attached to the agenda. The other 2 will be appended to the agenda tomorrow. Now I'll ask members from the public. You'll be given this opportunity right now to present any concerns or ask questions. You'll be given 2 minutes, at which time there's the lighting system up there, green, yellow, and red. Green means you can talk. Yellow means, I think it's 30 seconds left, right? I believe. And then red means we're going to have to actually ask you to stop talking. But seeing there's not a lot of people here tonight, I will give the latitude of going a little bit longer. Anyways, at this point in time, the only things that I just want to remind the public that the comments pertaining to bylaw 1700-10, Colwood, on the Colwood OCP 1700-2018, amendment number 10, which is the environmental development permit area, has already been subject to a public hearing, and discussion on that is prohibited at this meeting. So at this time, I'll ask the public to speak if they wish. Okay, seeing none, I will move on to new business, item 7. 7.1 is the North Latoria Visioning Project update. Desiree, I see you here. You can introduce the item.
Thank you, Mayor. So the next item on your agenda is the North Latoria Visioning Project update, and we're here to provide an update just on the present the engagement results, share with you the revised land use concept, as well as to seek direction from council on next steps. So the North Latoria area plan encompasses 13 privately owned properties, and the visioning exercise began in early 2022 in response to a high volume of rezoning properties that were received from various property owners within the corridor, and the need to think more holistically about the development of the area as a whole, as opposed to thinking about it on a parcel by parcel basis. The purpose of the visioning exercise was to create a unified, cohesive vision and area and plan for the area that would ensure the community's priorities are guiding growth in the area, as well as providing exceptional protection of the environmental assets, consider necessary transportation infrastructure upgrades, and to secure neighborhood enhancements and desired community amenities. Oh yes, please. Thank you, Marcy. So we have now concluded the first 2 phases of the project, which involved reviewing the existing city plans and council resolutions impacting the study area, as well as developing and exploring conceptual land use options through conversations with council, stakeholders, and the general public. And we are now moving into phase 3, which would be the development of an area plan. But before we move on, we're seeking council's direction to proceed with that. And I'll just highlight some of the engagement activities from the project's second phase. So the second phase involved a few different initiatives. In total, we held 4 community events with members of the public about a conceptual land use option for the North Latoria corridor. We took advantage of community events already happening within the city, such as the Eats and Beats event that took place on July 27th at the Beachlands, as well as the Music in the Park event at the Herm Williams Park in late August. In September, we also hosted 2 pop-up events, including one at Red Barn Market on Saturday, September 7th, as well as a street party in the local neighborhood on Saturday, September 14th. In addition to these in-person events, we also posted project information on the city's Let's Talk Colwood page and launched a survey, which was available in person at City Hall as well as online from August 7th until September 14th. Promotion for these events included the city's social media platforms, a dedicated project webpage, advertisements in the Goldstream Gazette, as well as mailer packages that were distributed to the properties neighboring the study area. Taking a look now at the participation by the numbers, we received 62 surveys during this project phase. More than 250 people attended the in-person events. We also received a total of 257 open-ended comments and 304 sticky dot votes. Importantly, nearly all of the respondents, 94%, indicated that they would like to see community leisure space provided within the North Latoria corridor area. In terms of the engagement format for the in-person events, poster boards were presented to the community with an update on the project to seek their feedback on the draft land use concept. The boards presented information about the overall process and the project status, showed road options that had been explored by staff and stakeholders, and presented a draft land use concept that is shown on the right of the slide, which I'll get into in the next few slides. Feedback boards were provided to the community to share their priorities through a democracy exercise, in which respondents voted on their preferred housing types and social amenities by adding dots to each of the feedback boards. The same questions were asked within the survey, along with a few additional questions to specifically solicit input on what respondents liked most about the land use concept and what they liked least. So this is the land use concept that was presented to the public. This previous version envisioned the creation of a new internal road that would connect from Veterans Memorial Parkway to Latoria Road and would provide access to the western properties, as well as a new internal road extending from the existing Byzantine Way to provide access to the eastern properties. The intent was to minimize the number of accesses onto Latoria Road and to reduce the number of creek crossings over Latoria Creek. The land use concept also mapped out the existing environmentally significant features of the lands, including all major water courses and their protected environmental buffers, and any significant clusters of mature tree canopy in order to help identify specific areas of the land that could be protected from development. On the west side, the concept had envisioned a mixed use residential, commercial, and institutional use buildings between 5 to 8 stories. On the east side, the concept considered a multifamily hub with apartments and townhomes ranging from 3 to 6 stories in height. So with respect to what we heard about community priorities, the following themes were identified throughout the engagement, including a desire to see social amenities be provided, such as trails, sidewalks, parks, community leisure spaces, and commercial opportunities. We also heard that there was an interest in seeing a diverse housing offerings, including units with 3 or more bedrooms, large enough to accommodate families, as well as affordable housing. We also heard a desire for the protection of environmental features and environmental stewardship, including retaining and preserving the existing mature tree canopy and protecting Latoria and North Latoria Creek. The 2 main concerns that emerged out of this project phase included impacts on transportation, specifically a concern about the potential for increased traffic in the area and congestion on Latoria Road due to the redevelopment of the lands, and a desire to see a 4-way stop or other similar treatment at the intersection of Byzantine and Latoria. We also heard a concern about the community character, specifically that 6 to 8 stories might be too dense for the neighborhood, and a desire to see this area better integrated into the current look and feel of the neighborhood that's already there, as well as need to see additional amenities be provided in order to accommodate new residents. So this slide shows how the land use concept has changed. Following the conclusion of the community engagement, staff revisited this land use concept and revised it in response to the feedback that we received. The key changes included heights that are permitted within the concept, as well as the internal road on the west. So with respect to height, whereas the previous version supported up to 8 stories on the west and up to 6 stories on the east, the revised version supports up to 6 stories across the entire study area. This change was in response to the feedback that we received about 8 stories maybe being too dense for the existing neighborhood. This change does align also more closely with the existing OCP policy direction for the area. Most of these properties are within the hillside designation, which supports up to 6 stories when an environmental benefit can be achieved, and a floor area ratio of 2.5. The other change that we made was the internal road on the west, whereas the previous version considered connecting Veterans Memorial Parkway down to Latoria Road. This version shows a cul-de-sac or shows a road that terminates in a cul-de-sac and only provides connection off of Veterans Memorial Parkway. So staff are here tonight to seek direction from council to move forward with the development of a local area plan that could guide future development of the North Latoria lands. The area plan would include policies to address things like tree canopy preservation, environmental protection, as well as neighborhood amenities based off of what we've learned so far, as well as more technical review and analysis that will take place in the next phase of the project. Part of this more technical review and analysis will be to retain a land economic specialist to vet the land use concept to determine financial feasibility and explore what amenities would be able to be achieved in exchange for the density that's offered. In light of Bills 44 and 47, and specifically Bill 16, every time a municipality wishes to explore a bonus density framework, we are now required to undertake financial feasibility analysis. So part of this recommendation, we are asking council for permission to proceed with the possibility of retaining a consultant to look at the potential density bonusing framework for this and to determine whether or not that's achievable and to inform next steps. Other options in the report also include the staff recommendation with revisions from council. Option 3 would be to maintain the existing policy direction for the area and to not endorse the land use concept. This would allow the existing rezoning applications to come forward without any further delay, and they would be assessed under the existing neighborhood hillside designation. And option 4 would be to defer the decision and to recommend staff provide additional information. So that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have at this time.
Thanks very much, Desiree. Just a quickie, I have a bunch of questions, actually. What was the recommendation from the Planning and Land Use Committee, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The recommendation was the staff recommendation provided on this slide here.
Oh, perfect. Okay, thank you. I will open the floor to council, please. Council, oops. Where's my IT person? Yeah, it's a screen that I don't know what I'm doing with right now. Never seen this screen.
Thanks, Desiree, for the report. I just had some questions regarding the areas on the map that you showed. So we're not entertaining any more 8-story buildings, but there is an 8-story building already approved? Is that right?
Thank you, Councillor Jordison, and through the chair. Yes, the 8-story building at 594 Latoria was approved previously under a different rezoning application, and currently the revised land use concept only is looking at up to 6 stories. However, we do need to vet the concept through the land economic specialist to make sure that this is going to be feasible. So we're not closing the door on 8 stories, but we at this time are trying to respond to the feedback that we heard from the community and cap it at 6 stories until we hear that that's not possible or not feasible from an economic perspective.
Okay, yeah, I was just curious if there were additional amenities, if that would be, yeah, entertained. I just also wanted to say that I appreciate all the developers having worked together towards a neighborhood vision. I think that should be commended, that it's, and staff, of course, that everybody worked together to not just develop their own lot in this presentation. But I did have one question. I went into the land planning information that from their last meeting. And in the next steps, I guess it's under next steps timelines in phase 3 in green, it talks about a land economist or whatever, economist. And I'm just curious is that part of the process, and what does that person do, and like what data are they going to use to support that analysis?
Thank you for the question, Councillor Jordison, and through the chair. Yes, so the land economic specialist would be looking at the existing value under the current zoning and comparing it to the value of the lands that could be gained if it were to be rezoned. And then they would, I'm not a specialist myself, but I think they'd be looking at property values and performas from the developers, as well as any information from market research in order to determine an appropriate cap on density.
Yeah, I'm not quite understanding like why we would have, like why, so the city is gonna pay for that?
Through the chair, if I may, I will add a few points on the reason that we are engaging the land economist is because we, given the list of amenities that the community has expressed a desire to negotiate or explore out of these lands, we want to use some of the new tools that the province has presented under the new bills 44, 46, 47, to see how can we negotiate those amenities in the form that the province wants us to go forward. So we're trying to move away from development agreements and one-off negotiations and set up a framework where we have density bonusing, or there's a clear expectation of what the amenity is and what you get in return for providing said amenity. The requirement from the province is that every time that a municipality is exploring a bonus density framework, so a way to almost price density and height, then you need to prove a feasibility, that you have undertaken a feasibility study to understand what the economic impact of the requests are on development. So this is a mandated process through the province if we were to take on that bonus density framework. And I guess what we're saying is that we want to explore if this is an option. Through the analysis, we will find out if bonus density, if there's enough of a gain in the land left, in the difference between what's permitted now and what could be permitted under rezoning, and if there's enough of a difference there where the municipality could capture a portion of that difference. And we need that analysis done by the right professional.
Okay, I think I understand. I thought it was a bit, seemed a bit offside. I thought like the developers themselves would understand their own financial obligations and those sort of things. So it seemed like an extra step that I didn't understand, and I think it's because it's new. So thank you for explaining that.
Thanks so much. Councillor Day.
Thank you. As per the letter that's included with the agenda, we are still waiting for staff to start our inland floodplain mapping. And I think that particularly is concerning for this area, being as it's a creek and a drainage area. I was just having a look out there today after all the rains, especially to see how things are performing, and noticed that there is a lot of storm drainage that is directed into the creeks. And with climate change, everything becoming more intense these days, I think it's very important that we understand that floodplain and how the future will look once there's development that may impede the flow of water in some areas. I would anticipate that if we're getting 6-story buildings, there's probably underground parking and what the issues might be. So when will the inland floodplain mapping take place?
Thank you. Through the chair. We're hoping to have it done sometime Q3 of this year.
Okay.
It hasn't been started at this time.
And the other question that I have is from the point of view of traffic concerns on Latoria Road. There are, or there has been for 25 years or so, plans that came along when Royal Bay was master planned, that there would eventually be a need for a light at Wishart and Latoria. And now we also have a need for some sort of signalization control, whether it's stop sign, stop light, don't know, at Byzantin. And then we have our traffic circles. So in none of the reports did I see anything about reflecting the Wishart Road intersection needs that were identified in 1999. So I'm just wondering, has that been considered with these developments?
Thank you through the chair. Yes, the Wishart Road Light intersection is actually a DCC project, so it is planned for. We haven't determined that date yet. The Benzan intersection is not a DCC project, so it's likely that that would be borne by the development, depending on what the development looks like. We haven't done any specific road studies in this area yet, as we don't know the density, so we don't ultimately know the impact of the project. But certainly, Latoria Road from VMP to Wishart is also a DCC project, so the development of that roadway and the impacts, depending on the density, will be considered, and then the developers and the movement of the creek and protection of the creek and all of that is part of that DCC project. So at the time when we figure out density, then we can take a look at that and then move forward with the traffic analysis to determine, you know, what the ultimate road looks like, where the creek would land, and then whether the treatment at Benzan would be a light, which is likely, and then the same as the timing for the Wishart light as well.
Okay, also included in that letter was traffic data from the CRD with volumes for road segments with at least 8,000 vehicles per day. And that does not, Latoria Road doesn't show up on those traffic volumes. Only Machosen and VMP do. So I'm just curious, do we have traffic volumes for Latoria?
Yes, we do. I think at this point, we've counted Latoria in various places 4 times internally, and then our consultant has counted it several times as well. So I think we have somewhere in their range of 6 to 8 counts on Latoria.
And are those counts in excess of 8,000 vehicles per day?
I do not know at this time. If you made me guess, I would expect that at times they would be. But I'd have to go back and check and get back to you.
Okay, thank you. And for the planning staff, we are looking at pretty much 6 stories overall of the North Latoria area. Is that correct? It's not four stories anywhere. It's 6 overall, but a pre-existing 8-story on the one end.
Thank you, Councillor Day, and through the chair. We are looking at 4 to 6 stories. So 4 stories would be the base density that would be outright permitted. 6 stories would be the bonus density, which would be provided, which would be permitted if amenities are provided in exchange for the increased density. Again, this does need to be vetted through that land economics specialist, but at this time it is 4 stories as the base and 6 stories max with amenities.
Okay, so that's new information for me. I had thought that when you were talking about bonus density, I wasn't sure where the ceiling was for that. So the ceiling would be 6 stories.
And I think like we ourselves are uncertain of where the ceiling could be. I think we would come back with council with insight from the land economics specialist to tell us if your ask is this big, then you need to give up more density, more height. And I think we'll come back to council with those insights for you to direct where is the balance of the right amount of density for the right amount of amenities for the community. But we want to recognize and start the conversation at the 4 to 6 story because we heard from the community a desire to moderate or regulate heights to a certain limit. The existing land use designation in the area allows up to 6 stories. So I feel like we feel internally that the 4 to 6 story, it's still consistent with the existing OCP designation. And then we can start that conversation vetted with an analysis and then present back to council options of amenities or quantify the value of that added density and what would that give us in terms of affordable housing or other amenities.
Thank you. And I'd just like to speak to that this is a green area currently, and development in this area is potentially very may have really negative impacts on both the environment and the neighborhood. It doesn't sound like a lot, 6 stories, but if you live in a single story home, it certainly is a lot to have 6 stories right next to you. And this is an area that's maybe not as easily facilitated as others. And our most recent numbers, I think we are still well within meeting the legislative requirements for new homes, are we not?
We do have some confidence that we can meet our 3rd-year target with the occupancy permits that we expect to see throughout 2025. We believe that we can reach our housing target for year 3 on year 1. That said, and it's hard to keep track of all these targets and goals, but we have our housing needs assessment that sets up a 20-year housing objective, and then the provincial housing target orders that we have our 940 units and change over the next 5 years. So it's 2 different numbers that we're tracking towards. We do have some certainty that we're hitting year 3 of the housing target order for the 900 and some units by the end of this year.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. Just a couple questions. I'm not familiar with this terminology, a local area plan. That's a new term. I've never heard of it. So I was just trying to understand, because I was reading the report and trying to draw out like the way I'm a typical engineer, right? Input, output, and trying to understand what are the deliverables, like what are the actual deliverables out of a local area plan? And are there touch points for council during that process? Like, that's what I'd like to know.
So a local area plan is, it's given us a vision for an area of Colwood, and it's a high level overview or vision. So Royal Bay has a local area plan, and then within it, it has a sub area plan that is the rezonings that we did for Beachlands and Latoria South are sub area plans. So they are getting into the nitty gritty of like road networks and how to parcel out, how to deliver the vision of the higher document. So what we're doing here is something, maybe if you look at Olympic View is also a local area plan within the official community plan. And so it has high level guidance and policy, just highlighting the principles and objectives that we are going to try to achieve throughout development of the lands.
Okay.
And then further refinement can come through a sub-area plan like Beachlands or Latoria South. And in this case, we don't foresee the need of a further refinement because we're only speaking of 13 properties where we think we can achieve that implementation through a zone, creating the zone that implements the vision because it is in the large scheme of things, it's not the 68 hectares of land of Latoria South, is a much more
Okay, so
discrete amount
I
of
think
land.
I'll make it easier. You can answer it easier, much easier for me. So right now, we've got some conceptual plans. And to me, I define those as local area plans because they're conceptual where you're putting things. But so what's the difference between what you've given us as a conceptual plan and your next step, which is a local area plan. That's, I guess, what I'm trying to find out. What more am I gonna see here?
So you are going to see proposed height, proposed density, proposed build form, the type of build form that we want to see. You are going to see policies specifically, and I think there's a lot of people among staff that share the concerns of Councilor Day around stormwater management for the site. And so policies around how will we manage stormwater, kind of what is our expectation on development, and as well as maybe parkland and or city-owned land to do some of the work of infiltration and retention, expectations around stewardship and management of the riparian area. So it's basically the policies that would go with the drawing to ensure that we are delivering what we heard from the community needs to come alive with some expectations around maybe tree preservation, or like the local area plan of Olympic View requires 40% of open space be secured through the process of development. And so those types of objectives and targets.
Okay, I got the picture now. That's perfect. Thank you. So, the next, if you just look at your high level plan right now, the next touch point really that I see, but maybe there's other touch points in between from now till Q4, which is the draft bylaw, right? And that's when is there other touch points that we have up to that point? And what are they basically?
We want to come back to council once we have the analysis from the land economic analyst, because that would be the most insight we get into what is the right amount of density. For us to create a zone, we want a zone that is buildable, that is ready for someone to build. We don't want to create something that is perfect on paper but not realistic for construction. So this is why we want to keep open the height to maybe 8. We want to have that conversation open and come back to council and show you that analysis and guide us before we go into the policy making. Have one more touch point, because I think what we heard from the community has been loud and clear. We understand the priorities. The challenge with land use is that we don't always achieve everything that is that people would want to see. And so the prioritization will be down by council. So we will come back.
That's a great answer. I understand this now. So the last question I have is resources on this. You have enough resources to accomplish this and meet these dates then? Yes? No?
Yes. We have been working on these Latoria, North Latoria corridor for a number of years. We have also had a lot of flexibility and cooperation from the applicants that have provided a lot of input into the process. And we believe that we have the information from the community, the understanding of what council wants to explore, and we're ready to proceed to the next piece of the analysis and come back for some prioritization and decision making before we draft a plan or bylaw.
So this might be premature. Estimate of person hours on this then, from staff perspective?
We're coming back at the end, like April 14, we have a staff report that did provide staff hours, but on this particular one, we didn't do that exercise quite yet.
Okay.
But maybe next time we'll do some accounting.
You're starting to read my mind then. Okay,
Yes.
good stuff. Thank you very much. That's good. Any other questions from staff, from council? Yes, Councilor D.
Thank you. While you were answering the mayor's question, a question occurred to me. After you've developed a local area plan and you bring that plan with your financial information back to council, what will we not be able to amend?
I don't think there's, I mean, everything is still for approval, and like we will try to ensure that when we present, the decision points are clear for council to see, like it's about height, it's about density, it's about tree preservation. um, And we will make sure that we clearly outline those decision points. Um, I think the only thing that we probably cannot dictate is riparian area regulations. We implement them, but we don't supersede the province. So those expectations around buffers, we will be generous to create setbacks and space for it, but we are not the jurisdiction in charge of riparian, so we will have to let the process unfold for the province to dictate what that buffer is. But our expectation has been through the process to create enough of a buffer around this creek to ask for enough of a land take that we can in the future accommodate changing or expanding needs for that creek. So we're not asking for like a minimum distance of 10 meters to try and meander a creek within those 10 meters. We're giving us ourselves enough room to future-proof changing expectations from the province. So I would say the provincial expectations will remain somewhat unknown, but we do have riparian area regulations of no development within 30 meters. So that remains. And then a SPIA will need to be set at time of development, and it could be less than 30 meters, but we are assuming the worst case scenario of 30 meters as the buffer that we are currently embedding into this, into that diagram and plan.
Okay, thank you. Director of Engineering and Public Works, Mr. Rosenberg.
Thank you, Worship. I'd just like to add that one of the benefits of the local area plan is in dealing with the riparian area through our early stage engagement with the province. They've stated that very much their preference would be if that creek was going to be moved and protected, it would be one fell swoop, not one property at a time. It's very hard to move a creek one property at a time. So by putting together the land area plan, it would allow us to come up with a plan to move the creek completely away from the road as opposed to on one-off pieces, which would be extremely difficult to do.
Super, thank you very much. That's great. Seeing no other questions, I will look for a mover of the staff recommendation, please. Councillor Grove, seconder, Councillor Jordison. Discussion. Councillor Day.
Thank you. I'm just very concerned that our expectations have not been tempered by much reality yet in this area. So a lot of the input from the community has been at events where, you know, there's not really any additional information being provided to people, and they may not know that much about the area. And it's concerning to me that, you know, we're not really providing that much information to people for a really informed opinion to be gathered at those pop-up events. So that's a real concern for me. Also, the height is a big concern. I know that the adjacent properties are generally uphill, but those properties are 1 or 2 stories, and there's been a lot of changes over the years. So I remain very concerned with this, both for the transportation, for the reality of moving that creek, and what potential losses there may be to the habitat. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no other questions or comments, I will call the question. All those in favor? And opposed? Councillor Day opposes. Motion carries. We'll move on to item 7.2. I just raised this one because well before they decided to call a federal election, We already had a pre-scheduled council meeting for Monday, the 28th of April. It was on the schedule, and at the same time, we decided to do a committee of the whole because there's an item that we need to discuss at committee of the whole before we bring to council. Unfortunately, they called the federal election. It happens to be on the same night. This creates a lot of difficulties, and I was just going to move it, but I certainly want council input into this. It's not one of these ones where we can just not have it and skip it to the next council meeting. Our agendas are going to be very full by then, so we can't afford not to have the meeting. We just sort of looked at everything that was scheduled that week, and the only day that was potentially available, but it's also going to depend on the feedback we get from council, was actually the Thursday. So we were trying to move this to Thursday, to have the committee of the whole on the Thursday as well as the council meeting. Now, it's unusual. It's not something I take lightly and I want to do. It's like we're meeting here tonight, but this was much more efficient because of the public meeting that we were having tonight. It was no sense pulling in the council in for 2 different nights when we knew that everything was going to go quickly. So I have proposed it to be for the Thursday, which is the 1st of May. But I certainly want to hear back from council. If everyone's going to say, no, Mayor, you're crazy, I don't want to do this, then, we're going to have to find an alternate. But literally, it's unfair. I know that there's a law around where employers are supposed to give their employees a certain amount of time to go out and vote to start off with. I know that's around. And it's just not fair to me that if we were to have it the Monday, basically, if people don't get that opportunity and they have to do it in the evening, they're not going to come to council meeting anyway. So why have it? It just defeats the purpose. That's just my viewpoint. But I certainly want to open up the discussion on this. And my recommendation is that we move it to the 1st of May. Just showing you I'm a Democratic guy. Anyways, I'll take some comments if you want to questions. Councillor Grove.
Thank you, Mayor. I agree completely with your points, and if you need a motion, I can make it to proceed with that change. The election's important, and people need to stay focused on that. I'm concerned about the attention the agenda would get if we're all distracted. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Day.
I agree that we would be distracted, so definitely we have to move our meeting, but I really don't agree with it being on a Thursday. I think it's certainly out of my comfort zone. I'm trying to stick to a regular time and a regular day so that people know when to look for things to be on the agenda and are prepared to participate.
So I'd be open to other suggestions with which you would want to do then. You can't have it on the Mondays. So.
Well, there's the 5th as well.
Yeah,
that's a Monday.
That's the following Monday, I believe.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I think it cancels out other meetings.
There's a
again.
planning and land use scheduled
that's what I
that
thought.
evening as well. Thank you.
It's just, it starts off a chain. That was the thing that we were trying not to interfere with, was other committee meetings. So we try to do the thing of least effect. So, yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry, but I just don't believe that planning and land use trumps council. So it's my feeling.
Yeah. And then we have a council meeting the following Monday again. So, that just gives very little time for staff to prepare to. That's what I'm trying to consider. Everything is, we're condensing everything here. So. Any other comments? So I'm looking for a motion and we can decide amongst ourselves. Yeah. Okay. Councillor Grove moves it. Do I second her? Okay. Thank you. Councillor Jordison. Discussion, further discussion. And I call the question. All those in favor of moving it to May 1st? Okay. And those opposed? Okay. Councillor Day opposes. Motion carries. Okay, we'll move on to section 8, which is bylaws. Marcy, if you could read the bylaws, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. We have bylaw number 1751-02-2025, the Colwood Officers Amendment Bylaw for adoption.
May I have a mover and seconder, please? Okay, Councillor Jordison, Councillor Grove. Discussion, seeing none. Any opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Next bylaw, please.
Bylaw number 2043, the Pendray House Heritage Designation, going for third reading and adoption.
Motion, please. Okay, Councillor Grove and Councillor Jordison. Discussion? Seeing none. Any opposed to the motion? Seeing none, motion carries. A motion to adjourn, please. Thank you. Councillor Jordison, Councillor Grove. Discussion? Any opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Thank you very much, everyone, for tonight.